The video that I'm going to be reacting to is this one right here that was done by the Financial Diet. I'm 31, married, and never want kids. Leave me alone.
As far back as I can remember, the idea of having kids never seemed appealing to me. When my girlfriends were playing with their dolls and begging their parents for the life-size baby ones who sucked a bottle and simulated peeing, I was building Lego sets and playing video games.
I also played with Lego, but I kind of did want like the big baby dolls. I had like regular sized baby dolls, but I would have loved to have one that actually peed. I actually wanted to see the mechanisms of how the doll would actually pee. You know where they used to have like the little bottles that looked like they had milk in them, and then you would tip it back and the baby would drink the milk and then the milk was magically gone? I really wanted that. Not because I love the idea of babies, but just because it fascinated me, like the mechanism of how do you make that work? I thought that was pretty neat. But I also climbed trees and made forts and played in the woods. So I guess I was the kid that kind of played with everything.
I don't think that made me some kind of a special snowflake. Of course, because I know that there's nothing special about a girl who liked to build things. I just didn't care about kids. I didn't want to pretend to take care of one, and I preferred to do other things instead.
That is very true.
As I went through high school, then college, then my 20s, I assumed that this attitude would magically change. Everyone told me how much I'd want kids someday, from my mother, to my sister-in-law, to my gynecologist.
Like I've said many times before, I never wanted kids, even from the time that I was young. But people always told me that I would change my mind, so you just assume, okay, one day you will change your mind, and that will happen. I'm still waiting for my mind to be changed, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
But as I approached 30 and found myself married, I started panicking that the baby switch had not yet been flipped in my head.
Do you guys feel like you kind of have a panic switch, that you've felt panicked because you haven't wanted a child? I don't think I've ever felt like that. I've been okay not wanting kids. Even when people kind of say negative things to you, I'm just like, this is just who I am. I don't want children. I don't think that devalues me in any way.
Not only was I not feeling that magical feeling everyone told me I would, I was letting down everyone around me who wanted a baby from me. My family, my friends who were now having babies themselves, and potentially my husband.
I don't feel like I've ever really felt that pressure. Like when people were all having babies, it didn't make me feel pressured to have a baby. I have siblings, and one of my sisters had her kids when she was pretty young. So I feel like, there were already nieces around, and my parents had grandbabies, and my other siblings now have children as well.
But the truth is that my husband and I never really talked about kids. Mostly because the two of us were aunt and uncle since we were in our early 20s.
Okay, that is strange to me that you've never spoken to your spouse about having children. That is huge. I think it's huge. But I guess everyone deals with the baby stuff in a bit of a different way in their relationship, but I could not have imagined not having this discussion with my husband, partially because I knew I didn't want to have kids, so I felt like it would have been unfair to not even mention that I didn't want kids, especially if he had really wanted kids, which he didn't.
It probably seemed natural that we'd have kids too, and we would talk about it in very general ways. Like if we saw a good Pixar movie, we'd make a comment like, oh, our kids won't appreciate this X years from now, or something. And I loved him so much that it never seemed weird to me, this feeling that I didn't objectively want kids, but could occasionally refer to them with him.
I'm trying to think back that even when Michael and I were dating, I don't think I ever said, oh, one day when we have kids, or oh, if we ever had kids someday. Those words never left my mouth. But I would say if we were in certain situations like, wow, I'm really glad we don't have children.
But we never addressed it head on, and as I began to have nightmares around my 30th birthday about finding out I was pregnant, I knew I had to.
Oh, I know all about the nightmares. Have you guys had dreams that you're pregnant and you're like devastated in your dream? I know that sounds so horrible because there's people who really want babies that can't have them. And if they had a dream that they were pregnant, they'd probably be like enthusiastic about it and be so excited. But I've had so many dreams that I'm pregnant and I will wake up in tears. I'm not a crier, but the idea of having a baby when you really don't want one is a little terrifying. So there have been times where I've woken up and I was just like, oh my goodness, thank goodness that was a dream.
So one day I asked him flat out if and when he actually wanted to have kids. After much circling around the subject on both of our parts, we realized that neither of us wanted them, and both felt immensely relieved.
I cannot imagine. That must be, yes, so relieving. And maybe a little bit hard to talk about because if you're like, oh my goodness, we've been married for a while and we really get along and things are great, but I don't want kids, but I don't really know how to say that because I don't want to wreck something in our marriage. That could be a pretty tough situation to be in.
Between us, we had 7 nieces and nephews, whom we were very close to, so our parents could never really pull the "we want grandkids" cards on us effectively. And since both of us loved our careers, travel, and freedom to pursue our various hobbies, not having kids felt like the best way to continue living the way we wanted. Once we realized that we were both on the same page, we spoke to our doctors about permanent birth control solutions. Surprise, surprise, I got a ton of concern trolling, and he got basically handed a pamphlet about vasectomies. We realized that people's perception of me not wanting kids was always going to be vastly different from people's perception of him, even though we were a united couple making a decision together for the rest of our lives.
Isn't that the truth? If you guys can relate to what she just said, give me like a yes or a thumbs up in the comment, because what she says is literally so relatable, completely relatable.
And the truth is that the judgment is non-stop. We don't have anything to hide, yet simply saying, we actually aren't going to have children, when someone annoyingly asks us when the kids are coming along, stops the conversation dead in its tracks. When you say you don't want children, people suddenly become vigorous disciples of a religion called having children, and they are going to do everything in their power to convert you while you're still stuck in a conversation together.
Yep.
It's obnoxious and judgmental and frankly incredibly rude. What if we wanted kids but couldn't have them? What if something had happened to a child we'd had? Why in the world is it socially acceptable to kick off conversations with, when are you having kids? It's a can of worms that no one should be opening.
So in my last video, I said I will give a shout out to whoever identifies what was different with Michael, and the winner was Stony McStone. So congratulations for correctly identifying that Michael no longer is wearing braces.
Look, I love kids and can totally understand how bonded parents feel to them. Someone who doesn't want them is not throwing away their life's meaning. It's degrading, frankly, and imagines that I'm A, much less intelligent than I am, and B, unable to make decisions for my own marriage, body, and life.
I agree with that. That's really true. You're sort of seen as being a less than person if you make the choice not to have kids, especially if you're a female. I think I've had actually some males write in and they say the same thing, like, hey, you're not the only one that gets backlash of not wanting kids. But I think typically females get hit a little bit harder on this one than males do. But it's very true. People assume you don't know what you want and that you're not capable of making a decision because you don't know what you're missing, and that you're not very smart and you will definitely regret your choice. And that's just simply not the truth.
I think that parenting is an often fraught thing, and yet parents are almost required by society to portray it as perfect all the time.
That's really true. And I actually feel bad for parents. Like, I know people choose to be parents, but I've talked to parents before that say to me, like, you know what? There are times when it sucks a lot to be a parent, and I don't enjoy being a parent at all. It's not that I don't love my children, but being a parent is so challenging, and it's like we're not allowed to say that because then we're bad people for saying that and being honest about it. There's this stigma that you have to make parenthood and having a family be like the most joyous and wonderful thing that's ever happened to you in your entire life. And maybe it is, but it comes with a lot of challenges. It comes with a lot of heartache. I know that's kind of like a totally different topic, but because she brought it up, I just wanted to put that in here really quick. Because yeah, I do think being a parent is probably one of the hardest jobs you can ever have.
Maybe anyone who opts out for selfish reasons feels like a threat or an inherent judgment on having children, but if a woman can be happy and fulfilled and totally whole without having children, then maybe that means having kids isn't the most important job a woman can do, or necessary to make a marriage whole, or something that makes you complete as a person.
I don't think you become a complete person just because you have children. The same way I don't think you become a complete and finished person because you get married. Those things can actually have huge benefits, but they can also actually be very challenging.
Having children then becomes just another choice among many, instead of a divine calling that everyone must follow.
That's kind of how I think about it too. It's a choice. It's a choice like, did I want to go to university? Or what did I want to study in university? Or do I want to get married? Or do I want to buy a house? Or do I want to rent? I literally think that's how I view children. They are a choice. Just because I can have kids doesn't mean I need to have kids. If I make the choice not to have kids, then that's my choice, and there will be some things I experience in life and some things I don't experience in life as a result of that choice. It's an option, the way there are many options in the world. The strange thing about this option, though, is people don't really see it as a choice. They see it as something that you feel like you must do.
Truthfully, there is no such thing as a selfish reason to not have kids. Having a child is something many people do, whether we like it or not, without the proper thought or resources. Not having a child when you know you are not equipped or don't desire to be a parent is the ethical and frankly moral thing to do.
Yes, I feel like this is my soapbox moment coming up right now. This is gold because this makes so much sense to me, and I have such a hard time understanding why people see that as being selfish. If you don't have the desire to have a child, and so you say, you know what, maybe it's because I'm not equipped, or maybe it's for, whatever reason it is, and you make the choice not to have a kid, that's actually a very responsible decision. The irresponsible thing to do is, you know what, I really don't feel like I'm equipped to have a kid, or I really don't want a kid. Well, I'm just gonna have one anyway because everyone tells me that I should, and that's what society expects out of me, and then where are you left? that child is probably not going to have the life that they deserve to have because you don't really want to be a parent.
My husband and I have talked about possibly fostering later in life when we're more settled in our careers, but that's just a big maybe. And us doing that noble thing wouldn't make our choice now any different. Us not having children is still the right thing, and us putting another child into the world because we thought that's what was expected of us would be the worst possible option for us and for the child, and frankly, for the world.
It's interesting that she says people expect. People expect you to make certain decisions, so we make decisions. I think we do that sometimes without thinking.
The next time you're thinking of telling a woman who doesn't want kids that she'll change her mind, remember that you are subtly pressuring her to make a decision she has already said is not right for her. You are adding to the social stigma every day of women who opt out of kids and increasing the likelihood that ever more children will be born into the world with parents who didn't fully, enthusiastically want them.
I don't think you should have children because people are telling you to have kids, just because that's what's expected of you.
We have the power to change the social paradigms, slow down overpopulation, and allow women to make their own choices on their own terms.
Having kids is definitely a choice, but it can be really hard if you find yourself in a situation where people are pressuring you to have kids. So check out this video right here for some helpful tips in dealing with that.